Hey, welcome to our Lift Zoom's webinar session. And this session is all about mentoring. And particularly, we focused our session on you as mentees in our Lift programs. And so before we start the topic, we're going to do a little check-in and update. So Myra has some update, and I also have the latest news about Lyft for others.
Yes. So hopefully everyone has seen that we've established the dates for our Lyft events this year. So for anyone that has anyone has in mind for the Lyft program, we are having our conference from June 22nd to the 26th. We have our 2020 flyers or brochures already printed, so we'll be sending you a couple of them. So if you want to go ahead and give them to someone that you think will be great for the program, that'll be awesome if you can help us recruiting for this year. Also for Lift 2, so Lift 2, for those who don't know what it is basically we gather all the past Lift alumni to come in one space for a day. And Dr. Curry has activities planned out for you. And also we do a lot of just getting together and learning about your stories and your accomplishments after Lyft, as well as it's a great opportunity for everyone to just network, because it's not just your cohort, but it's everyone else that has come in the past. So I know that a lot of people are very eager to learn about the successes of everyone that's participated. So that is a Saturday. We are planning it on June 20th, and usually it's around 8:30 to 3:30, or those details will be solidified later on, and also the location will be solidified later on. But for now, we know that we're going to do it Saturday, June 20th. And then after that, it's the actual new cohort, which is June 22nd and 26th. Also, scholarships are available. So if you recommend anyone and they need some type of help with, with paying for Lyft, we do provide some scholarships. So let them know that we are flexible with that. And also, I know we've sent out a data analysis survey. If you can, please, if you haven't done so, fill that out, just because our student assistant, Hanea, she's gonna write a report about all the other, all the things that we're gonna learn from you and what we need to improve on with Lyft in the future. So please, if you can do that, that'll be great. I think that's it for me. I don't know if you want to add anything, Dr. Curry, about what Lyft 2 is, because
Yeah.
I know I received a call asking from last year's cohort, asking what Lyft 2 really is, which is a great question.
Okay, Lift 2 is a one-day tune-up for our lifters to come and spend a day together, and you actually meet some lifters from past years, because it's all the Lyft alumni. And we also like to focus on topics that you have a need for. So feel free to let us know what topics that you like to cover. And we will try to see what is the critical mass. And then sometime if it's a specialized topic and we might be able to spend an hour on, we will do that. And that's really why we really haven't solidified exactly what we will cover on that day, but it's really more targeted and focused to your need. We hope you will join us. Last year, we spent the day at the Segerstrom Hall and then finished with the concert. We are looking for another venue so that your time could be much more fruitful and also enjoy each other's company as well. So we welcome you to give us some topics that particularly this year you would like to see us cover as a more in-depth and a tune-up for you. That's the Lift 2, okay? All right, and the other piece of news is this is hot off the press for Yolanda. And Pam, as I talked to the Chancellor's office, we would definitely continue Lifton next year. They have given us funding, and with praises to our program for the community college. Yeah, this is really wonderful. And in addition to that, we will most likely be opening up some things to statewide. So we will expand the impact of
Wow.
LIFT program to statewide. So for example, we can open source our leadership resource bank as well as our webinars so that more could benefit from these sessions that we hold. So that's wonderful news. They also thinking there may be projects that lifters could work on together, or if appropriate, might be given to the doctoral students as well in the program. So these are all really wonderful news.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
How
it's
did you manage that?
I don't know. I think
Yeah, you know.
all your good work and the impact of how our lifters are doing everywhere, wherever you are on your campus. I think it's showing and it's being recognized. And I think all of us who are involved with LIFT feel validated that there's this affirmation and there's continued support for the work we're doing. I think in particular, is really this, there's no other institute right now in leadership that really focus on this cultural strength and leading through diversity, and how do we think about inclusion. Like our last webinar is about leaders inclusive language, that with these focus from LIFT, we really are pioneer in the leadership development area, that with these justice, equity, and inclusive focus. So I'm really proud of that. And I want to
Me too.
particularly thank you, Yolanda. You have
Well,
been there
all
with
of
me
us,
from
not
the
just me.
beginning. And Pam, my
Yes, of course.
loyal friend and colleague. And so this is a good work moving ahead in this space.
And Dr. Curry, I'd like to put a shout out to the individuals at the Chancellor's office. I think two of them are on the line right now, Shante Denny and Jerry Griffith, because of the work they're doing after LIFT, I think that really makes a difference to those people who are now in leadership in the State Chancellor's office, to see what good professionals are there. And so there are others, but I believe those two are on the line, and we could go down the list of those good people who came to LIFT from the Chancellor's office, but have the ability to say things to people in leadership in state. And so I want to shout out to those two individuals who I know are on the line right now. But that would include Rhonda Moore and a variety of other people. They really took on LIFT, learned about it, and then wanted to try to support it. So shout out to Njeri and Shante, because I know they're on the call.
Hi, this is Shante. Thank you so much, Dr. Pam. That's just very touching. And I was actually under your leadership when you were at the Chancellor's office, and you brought LIFT to us and gave us the opportunity to participate. So likewise, thank you tremendously to all that you do to help lift and elevate as well. So thank you.
So I'm just thrilled to hear that the Chancellor's office will be a closer ally, a strong partner with us in developing more curriculum that is not only justice, equity, inclusive minded, but also focused and targeted to what the system-wide needs are from the Chancellor's office from year to year. So I really look forward to this partnership, and I want to thank again our Vice Chancellor and her team, Vice Chancellor Marty Alvarez, who were on the phone yesterday with us on this meeting. I just can't tell you, I'm ecstatic in having this partnership. She sees the vision, understands the importance, and commit and support this effort that we're doing in elevating, cultivating, shaping, building a strong leadership pipeline, for the community college and for higher ed. For me, it's really about the system. This whole system is bigger than community college is bigger than California Community College, and that sometimes we cultivate someone in California and they may leave California, but I always think it's okay. They are somewhere out there still doing the good work, right? When we talk about the community, our community is larger than just a one system, a single system. It is really at the state level, at the national level, and for me, it's almost at the global level as well, that we cultivate excellent quality leaders. So I am just so enthusiastic and really looking forward to working with everyone in this coming year and developing even a stronger and more relevant program for LIFT. Okay, so
Outstanding.
yeah. Now, little bit, anybody else have news? Please send us. The latest happy news is you see the photo, and some of the lifters recognize the lady and also recognize the gentleman, the bride and the groom in the picture. This is our first lift tying knots. I can tell you how happy I am.
Where are they?
Luz, who was our program manager, prior to Myra, they're up north in Northern California. This is San Francisco courthouse that they took the picture. They tied the knots, and you know what? I can't remember what exact date was. This is in February. Pam, I don't know if you remember the exact date, but this is hot off the press news that Luz and Johnny have tied the knots. For those of you who don't know, when Johnny came to LIFT, was it 4 years ago or 3 years ago now? From the Chancellor's office he was then, and he's received a couple of promotions since then. From that time, and they have been, since they met at LIFT, they have been dating and courting, and this is a wonderful relationship. Both are just so wonderfully very close to my heart, and to see them tying the knots is absolutely just,
that's
great. My heart really smiled so big for them.
So you can start a side business, right? Like eHarmony.
Look, I'm not advertising, but this is what you get from
LIFT. Yes.
But this is one wonderful news, and we hope you continue to send your wonderful personal, professional news to us, sharing with others. Okay, we're going to talk about the mentoring, the importance of mentors, and why is it important to have mentors. And I'm also asking Pam to talk about some of our lifters are actually not taking advantage of this opportunity, right. And what is what about the mentor relationship that is of benefit? So the experiences, why do you have mentors? I put down we collectively, I should say, put down some bullet points, but this is our starting point in terms of one of the reasons is really leaning into someone else who have the experiences in educational leadership, right? So their leadership experiences, and from the experiences, the skills and competencies, and of course that you're able to take advantage of their experiences and not stepping into landmines and to guide you the pathways. For me, that's, many of us, like Yolanda, Pam, you can chime in that for me, much of the time was looking for ways to, in the dark, if you don't have a mentor. And until when I found a mentor, I realized what that meant. It's like someone just gave you a light. You're able to see the way so much clearer with that mentor. And also managing the supervisors and how do you manage your own team. These are things that you can lean into the experiences of our mentors. Please, Pam and Yolanda, chime in terms of just focusing on the benefit of having a mentor, how you lean into their experience. And we have other reasons coming up in the next slides, but is there anything else that you want to talk about in terms of leaning into the mentor's experiences as one of the reasons why having a mentor is of great value to you?
Pam, you want to go next?
Sure, I will. So I think everyone on the line, and sorry I can't see your faces today, but I think one of the most important parts for me in my own career was to have someone who thought enough of me to spend some time with me. And it was very limited time early on. He was a dean of health, physical education, and athletics at a four-year college, and I was the person who was doing sports information, the publicity and promotions at that college for the women's teams early in my career. And this dean, who could have talked to any faculty member or any other manager, chose to spend little bits of time with me. And it often was in the evening after everybody else had left, and I would just walk by his office and ask him how he was doing. And then he was at the end of his career. And he said, come in and let's talk a minute. And pretty soon it got to be a place where I might have been in his office from 5 to 5:15 or 5:15 to 5:30, 4 days a week. And there were a few times we stayed a little late talking about, well, try this, well, don't forget this. That his wife would call and say, Pam, would you please send Shockey home? And so one of the things that I learned from him was his vast experience as an administrator, as an athletics person, as a national figure. And he was able to say to me, I think some people forget this, he would say, ask me a question, Pam, what's burning? What is something I could help you with today? Instead of me just listening, he wanted me to come focused on something that I might have something to think about. I've had lots of different mentors in my career, but I was so lucky he picked me, and maybe I picked him as well, but that we had that opportunity to share, and I got to share in his 50 years of experience, which was just a significant help in my own career. So I would say that when we talk about all the pieces that someone has, and I know we're going to talk a little later about how you get a mentor and how you work with them, but when that happens and you have the opportunity to share and you're comfortable in sharing, it's this incredible experience that lasts a lifetime. And I would say the things that Shockey said to me when I was 24 or 5, I still remember today. So that's just one experience of someone who has helped. And you, Yolanda?
Yes, I have had mentors, how should I say this, for just about every position, every job I've had. And I remember when I was in grad school, I actually had older graduate students and who had experiences that I would listen to. There was a graduate student who was a mother. She had children, and I was young, right? And I was trying to figure out how to manage just to get through all that stuff. And she was so helpful because she just showed me how to do it, right? Not talk to me, but showed me how this works, right? You can do multiple things. And then when I became a faculty member, the older faculty took me under their wing. And in my culture, right, I always have looked up to older people. So I never had a problem with going to someone and saying, I want to, understand what you've gone through. And I remember when I became a dean at Cal Poly Pomona, I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to go on. And I had the provost, actually was a white male, said to me, you're not asking me what you really want to ask me. And what is that? And I, wanted to open up to him, but I didn't know how. And he reached out to me. And we became the best friends through my career. And the idea of a mentor is someone that you feel comfortable talking to, someone, there's something in that person that you see that you want to know more about, because somehow it makes you feel, I want to be like that, or there's some quality about that person that I want in my life. And so that's how I've chosen my mentors. And they've been all over the country. They haven't been living right next to me like Pam. She was lucky. I had people that I would pick up the phone and call if I needed to. So
we have a section coming up talking about a mentoring relationship, the match, the right match, and what. So let me move on. So the second half of our webinar would be much more fruitful in talking about that relationship building, what that means. And the next is why we have a mentor is the career pathway guidance. I talked a little bit about, you know, that guiding light is a mentor could help you, giving you some career mapping, the different possibilities, because they've seen some of the pathways, not just their own, but they've seen other people's pathway. They've seen many others who have gone through different ways, and sometimes a straight shot, sometimes a zigzagging. They could give you the different possibilities given your background of career mapping. They can also tell you what kind of educational, what kind of experiential, what kind of professional preparations that you need to have depending on which pathway that you might take. Or how do you prepare yourself for the possibilities of different kinds of directions? Be ready for whatever that may come your way. So that's one of the things that a mentor can give you, that kind of a guidance. And that's why the lift mentors are minimum we have had at the vice president and chancellor and vice chancellor level, that they have seen broader picture. They have seen many more examples of different people's career. So they're able to give you that kind of guidance. And then third is that a lot of people use this, and this isn't exclusive. That is a mentor helping you in the job search process, of what kind of things you need to be prepared if you are in the search, and how you prepare for interviews. And that many of the people that I know in my circle, sometimes that they come to me for this part of mentoring, but they're actually much more than that. And that is not the only time you want to reach out to your mentor either. That's my suggestion, is, oh, I need to have an interview, help me, you know, coach me through some interviews. That's actually a coaching and not necessarily a mentoring session. So, but that's one of the areas that you absolutely can lean into your mentor. Don't miss the opportunity. I think a lot of times people are afraid to ask, afraid to tell that I need some interviewing skills. I need some feedback, how I come across, and I need some interviewing tips. So that's one of the ways that you can use your mentor. And also job change decisions. That is, when's the best time to leave? Maybe this is not the right place for me anymore, and not able to really see that. So why have a mentor is a good for career guidance, career pathway guidance, anything that's related to this area. That's another reason for a mentoring guidance. Anything you want to add to this part, Yolanda and Pam?
the only thing I would say is,
go ahead, Yolanda.
I remember mentoring young people at the beginning of their careers, and people who want to, you know, like move from one place to another. And I would caution them that there's a way to do it so it doesn't look as though they are dilettantes, right? That they're jumping from job to job to job. And if they're exiting for X, Y, or Z reason, they need to be careful about how they apply for that next job, how they write that letter. And I said, please check with me before you do that, because I want to make sure they don't burn their bridges or do something that's going to be a misstep on a longer kind of career trajectory, but to think through why they're doing things. And that I have found have been useful for people who lead with their heart sometimes and are trying to do things because it's the right thing to do. But I say, but there are ways to do that so that you can get what you want and you're not stigmatizing or labeling yourself in a way that might be hurtful in the future.
Absolutely.
And I would say that that's a good point, Yolanda. Having somebody one-on-one kind of hear that before you get too far afield. One of the things that happened for me in my early part of my career, I was coming from the 4-year college to the 2-year colleges, and I don't think I spoke the language of 2-year colleges then. I was trying to find ways to fit the experiences I had in the 4-year colleges with 2-year colleges, and a very important administrator and chancellor said to me, I think what you know is relevant. You're not saying it right. So I want you to make an appointment in my office and let me help you write your resume, put your resume together where it gives us the key understanding of what the key elements of what you know, because right now it's not doing that. That was such a significant opportunity, and that was that short-term mentorship. He said, let me see if I can help you talk our language. And so that was just so important. And so I was able to say the things I knew what I was doing in the speak of the community college and write it in an articulate way on a resume that gave people a better understanding of what I knew and what I was doing. So sometimes the mentorship isn't long-term. It's for what reason that you need it, and sometimes you get very lucky when those things happen. I actually am still using the essence of that resume and give it to everybody because I think it works really well. So it's kind of like that what he did goes on forever.
Right. And then this actually leads to our next one. I'm going to the next slide, which is the neutrality of the mentor. That means a different perspective and an impartial view and a different view about what's happening. Sometimes you just confronted a big challenge. Sometimes you're right in the middle of a very painful experience of what is happening, and if you're talking to your colleagues right near you, they may have a skewed view about what had just happened because they're impartial to you. Or go home and talk to my husband. If I talk to my husband, I'm always right? And he says, "You're right, Ding Zhou. You got to go back and fight this thing out." And that may not be the unbiased opinions about it. So a mentor who's someone who's not necessarily in the picture are able to hear your narration of whatever that you are confronting with and give you a different view, or maybe even ask you, have you considered this? And giving another side of it. Based on their own experiences and their own perspective. So that's one of the value of having someone who has had the experience and broader perspective to give you that. And then also someone who is not there to say things to please you because they don't have other agenda except their agenda is to help you. You're the mentee. Their goal is to help you to be successful, help you to see clearly, and help you to get on the path of success so they can give you the authentic feedback. That feedback not necessarily is always pleasant to hear. It might be a hard pill to swallow many times. And I can tell you that I've received many of those kind of feedback from my mentors. And sometimes, it has to, I need to go home and really, even from the mentors, they really, really have your interest at heart. where there's no other agenda attached.
Mhm.
So the authentic feedback is something that really has helped me to reflect on whatever is going on with me, with a perspective that I know and trust. You know, that trust is really important because I trust my mentor, have my best interest, and want to help me to see things a little bit differently. So this is the why you have a mentor is good. This is the another why is having that perspective. And I welcome Yolanda and Pam if you have anything to add to this
I
part
think
of it.
yeah, I think we all need someone who's going to give us some critical feedback because we have so many people around us who love us and want us to be successful, you know, and or will praise us one way or the other. And I think specifically about my husband. So I don't ask him anything because he's going to always say, yes, honey. So I don't ask him when I want really critical feedback, right? But I remember one of my mentors, I got a really bad evaluation on a particular thing, and it was it's about following through or something. And oh, I was just on a tear, and I was gonna go in and I was gonna confront my supervisor and blah blah blah. And I called my mentor, and so she said, okay, walk me through it. And I did. And she said, well, what was it about? And I told her, and she said, I would have given you that evaluation too.
Mm.
And that stopped me in my tracks. And she
Yeah.
said, what you need to do is to next time just knock the ball out of the park on that particular issue, and everything will be fine. Because I thought, oh, she's gonna, you know, my career is gonna be messed up, blah blah blah. And I did. And it was tough for me to hear it, but I heard it. And she says, I want you to be successful. That's what I want. And so you're going to have to hear this, because I am probably easier on you than some other people would be, but they were right. You've got to clean up your act around that, or around getting your work done on time.
And we're putting these bullet points up is another way of telling you that as you think about your own mentor relationship, are you leaning into areas that they can actually help you with? So as we go through these sections, you know, I hope you think about if you are using your mentoring relationship in these ways, and have you thought about this part of your mentor that being able to give you a different kind of view and give you some honest feedback on this neutrality of the mentor's perspective. Okay. The next area, why having a mentor, this is one that I have benefited greatly, which is I'm just having a little circle, and especially beginning in my own career, but knowing the mentor, their circle of spheres of network, all of a sudden become my circle, right? So having that mentor, it just instantly expand your spheres of influence, but you have to ask, do you know anybody who knows this part? Do you have anybody who's in this area? So your mentor know a lot more people certainly than you do, and that was the case for me. So this instant expansion of network is wonderful, and then giving you professional referrals. But if you don't ask, it may not be on the radar of the mentor to mention it to you. So it's always good to have that, in mind, that maybe the mentor doesn't know, or maybe always ask, do you know anybody? Or, making a referral. Would you mind making a connection for me on this area? Because I really need to learn a lot more on the ground level experiences in this particular area. And if somebody asks me that, I'm just more than happy to, be that connector to help you. So this expanded network and spheres of influence has greatly benefited me in my own career. Pam and Yolanda?
Right. I was at a national convention years ago when I walked up to say hello to someone who had acted in a mentor role to me, and he was talking with several other people. And he turned and he said, "I'd like you to meet my colleague," and looked at me. And he said to all these other individuals, "I'd like you to meet my colleague," which immediately changed the relationship that I was going to have with these individuals that I didn't know. Because he elevated me, and I had to immediately be ready to give my 30-second elevator speech, right? Hello, my name is, and you couldn't be afraid because they were all chancellors and presidents of major universities. And it was just, I was just stopping by. I was standing in the back and said, "I'm just going to say hello to this person." And that elevated the exposure that I had to these individuals that sort of changed for me a little bit. So I have tried to do the same thing as I have mentored and talked to people. "I'd like you to meet my colleague," which then I might walk away from, and they then have the experience of that elevated group or expanded group of people. So you don't know when it's going to happen. It might not be that it'll happen by you asking. It might just be that that's going to happen, and they're going to put you on the spot and you're going to start talking. But I think I would agree with Dr. Curry that I believe that when we need to reach out to people, a mentor can really help us, because if I think of my own life, and I've worked, more than 40 years, I know a lot of people, but even more than that, I know people that know a whole lot of people. So that's how you start those conversations, and the web of influence becomes pretty significant when people introduce you or move you through their relationships. And I would also say, if that happens, the benefit that you get is that the mentor is kind of touching you on the arm and saying, "Okay, it's time for you to go to that next level too." So it's just, there's a little bit of interplay in all of that.
And my experience has been, in terms of expansion of networks, my mentors have given me heads up about particular opportunities that I would never have known about.
Yep.
And passing it along that network, right? Like, this is a conference you should go to. Here is a resource you should take advantage of. Things that I wouldn't ordinarily be in my sphere of influence when I was, a younger faculty member. I just didn't know about those things. And they opened up all kinds of avenues. I remember one of my mentors telling me about becoming, signing up for the ACE leadership program, ACE, American Council on Education, when I was a faculty member, because they said, "You're not sure what you want to do, but here's an opportunity for you as a faculty member to get a year's worth of leadership experience and stay in California and see if this is something you want." So I was at Cal Poly Pomona. I went for 1 year to Long Beach State, and I lived in Long Beach. I was commuting to Cal Poly. I lived in Long Beach with a small child. So for me, it allowed me to not travel so much and to also get experience in the office of an administrator. And I would have never known about anything like that had it not been for my mentor.
Now, it's like your boss, your supervisor. Not all bosses know how to be bosses. So not all mentors exactly are expert. We're all work in progress. So sometimes a mentor forget. It's not because they don't know how, but they forget to introduce you to people.
Yeah.
So just be assertive. And how do you take advantage of the mentor? So for example, I may ask like, which conference you're going next? Oh, I'm going to the AACC. Oh, I want to go there. Do you mind me being a tag along, for a day? And then, boy, I have tag along people, and you'll be surprised. Right? First of all, you see how
You
they
have
are doing
tag-along
the net.
people.
Yeah, you see how they're networking, and every time they met somebody, just like Pam just said, they're going to turn around and say, "This is, my colleague," or "This is so and so," and then you actually just instantly expanded to the people
Mhm.
that they have contact with. That has been tremendous help, and I still see that, and you see that at conferences all the time. So it's good to ask your mentor which conference they're going to next, and
Mhm.
if you are able to go to the same conference, absolutely make that connection and stay and shadow them for a little bit. So
I
that's
also asked them about readings, about articles, and what kind of
Right.
books they were reading and things like that.
yeah.
So that was
Okay. I just looked at my time, and we got to move along
all right. All right.
a little bit faster. We have so much to share. Okay, the other one is why having a mentor is that the kind of relationship you can establish with someone who is successful, who has walked the path ahead of you. And that is developing a short and long-term relationship with someone who is, of course, in the education field. And then you'll be surprised that the friendship, Yolanda, you mentioned, the friendship that you become, that
Mhm.
it's, as you grow in the field, my mentor later had become my friend, right?
Mhm.
And then you're
Right.
able to, you've risen to when they were chancellor, I was a little whale poop, but when I became a chancellor and she's a chancellor, and we become colleagues and friends. And so that's
Hmm.
been the dynamics of the mentor-mentee relationship for me over the years when we stay with each other for a long-term basis. That's been a wonderful, wonderful addition and asset and value to my personal and professional life.
And I would just share that it when that relationship shifts just a little bit, and the first time you get asked a mentoring question from your mentor, what do you think about this? You better be ready to respond, because if you've been listening and being cared for by someone, as the relationship shifts to a more friendship or a colleague level, when they ask you, that's a pretty big deal. And so you want to also be ready to give thoughtful and caring responses.
Good point.
Now, the next slides we have about lift mentoring. I want to make a little qualification for the lift mentoring. Our lift mentors, and Pam, you can chime in because you talk to a lot of those mentors. We asked our mentor to commit a year with a mentee that we assign them to. And so that duration, the commitment they have made for being a lift mentor is 1 year. Now, should you develop a special relationship and continue, that's really on your own, but just know that they've committed 1 year's time. And they feel that beyond that year, they're not able to continue with you. And that's one of the things we'll talk about later. Clear communications about what you expect from this relationship. And the length of time to be together is also one of the expectations that you should talk about. But I want you to know as lifters that the lift mentors committed 1 year time. And what they also commit is that they will meet with you at least once a quarter. And that meeting, we have told them, it doesn't have to be in person. It could be like a Zoom. I mentor through Zoom a lot these days and found it just as effective. The only thing I can't do is give them a real hug, right? So we just have a virtual hug about our time together. So I just want to put in this qualifications about the lift mentors. Anything else, Pam, you want to add to that?
Right. So when I call on college vice presidents or presidents or chancellors, I often try to talk to them personally. Sometimes you can't, so it's in email or on phones and lots of conversations back and forth. But I say, you know, this may be the first time that our lifters will be asking mentor-related questions and ideas. And do you have the time to give this year? And sometimes somebody will say, "Oh my gosh, I've had 2 people who are the best in the world who have had nothing but issues on their campuses with changes and enrollment, and one of them finally said, 'Quit asking me. I can't do it right now, but you know I love this program.'" So these individuals who are our Lift mentors, they really do care and they want to do this, and they think it's an important professional opportunity both for them and for the person they're going to work with. And they are committed to phone calls, face-to-face, meeting at a conference, you know, any number of things, Zoom, any number of ways to talk to you. I think the hardest part is, and I think we'll talk about it in a minute, is when I've done all this work ahead of time and tried to set things up and then we don't get the relationship to work, then they'll come back and say, you know, I'll keep trying if you want me to. But so they really do commit and want to do this work.
Right. And so how do we select mentor mentees to make the match? This is like a program is called something about marriage, or you haven't met each other, but the counselors and therapists match you up and they meet each other for the first time and get married and court. So that's one of the TV programs. So in a way, we're kind of matching the mentor mentee that
Yes.
way as well, right? We know the mentor and we know you through Lift after we have met you and spend time with you in the first week together. So sometimes there are different ways that we have tried to match, and Pam chime in, that is by your professional experiences of the mentor. Maybe you're in the student affairs and this particular president came from a student affairs career pathway, or it could be an interest, an area of an interest. You know, you are interested in the STEM area and we have somebody who has really done a lot of work in that area. We could be, so by a discipline, sometimes it's by personality that we got to know you a little bit. So, I think this president and you know, you can be a good match there together. And then sometimes it's by your ethnicity. Okay, it happens. We think that someone who you can relate to culturally from background might be a good match for you to meet your needs. And it sometimes is a gender too, you know. Sometimes it's personality, right? There's all kinds of different ways, and sometimes is a leadership style. We know that you seem to have this kind of style and this leader has this kind of style, because it can be matching. Because I tell you, I have had people who had told me to talk to certain individuals, and when they tell me, give me the advice, it is so against my grain of my cultural being, as much as it's so right for him, I just can't see me doing it. It's not aligned to who I am as a person with my own background and cultural beliefs and values, and all of that is a mismatch. So there's just all different things that I think we try the best we can. We're very thoughtful at the front end, but that doesn't mean that it ends up to be a good match either a lot of times. So we hope that we can adjust. So sometimes there's this what's on the bulletin, there's chemistry, different elements about the two individuals that the chemistry works. Sometimes it's the empathy, and for me this word empathy is really that how they can relate to who you are. They can relate to the path that you have come from, that they can relate to that. They walk the exact same path. That's how they came. So they can really have that empathy. And sometimes it's by the similar experiences in the different sections of the system. And sometimes is nothing else but this person's genuine care for you that really makes the relationship work. So we at Lift, the way that you're matched to a mentor is not a typical ways. And so but we want you to experience a successful mentoring relationship. But there are other things when you look for a mentor yourself, that you can find different mentors align with you and work well with you for different reasons, right? So I am going to ask Pam and Yolanda to chime in about the selection.
So I'll just say a couple of things, and then Yolanda can say some deep stuff. So one of the things I think it's important is that early on, if the opportunity presents itself, we've also looked at aligning people relative to location, because if somebody can break bread together at a breakfast meeting or have lunch together, sometimes that is very helpful as well. And you know, some of the presidents and vice presidents who have maybe have retired, and they have a little more time to do some things. So that's one way that sometimes people get connected. I think the other part is this is like mentor.com, right? You look at people as we're working with you during the week, read some of the documents you've had, watch you interact with others, and think, I think this person might be really good for them based on the experiences we know about the mentor. And so I think Bing Joe has hit all the pieces, but I would also say location has been important in some situations where people can stare at each other and look at each other and talk about things over a table as well.
Yeah.
So one of the things that what do you discuss at the beginning of the mentoring relationship? How do you establish a positive, a constructive, healthy relationship? Is having some ground rules will really help to have that. You know, anytime you work with a group, you say, what might be our ground rules? And you want to know how to approach the mentor, right? How do you schedule? Is it through them directly, or is it through their assistants? And how do they meet? Whether some mentors absolutely like to break bread together, and some like to, but don't have the luxury of time to get off campus or do whatever. So what is the best working relationship which you have? What about time? And now for Lift, they've committed to one every quarter. Now we have had mentors, and Pam, you could talk about, we have mentors that go way beyond the call of duty and said they have been contacting their mentees on a monthly basis. So that is not what we asked our mentor to do. But some do, being this perfect mentor. And so what kind of time do they have besides the once a quarter? But any other mentor you have, it's always good to see what it is that they can commit themselves to. And then also, what are the ground rules that your mentor like to see you in follow-up actions on advice? Because I can tell you just from my own experiences, I like to hear, and I tell my mentees that if I've given you an advice, I would really like to hear, how did it work out? Because it's good feedback for me, right? You've done that, and then what's the dynamic? What's the result? What worked and what didn't work? That also helps me, and also helps me to help you better the next time. Because when I ask you to take this action, the art part of it is you carry out that action as who you are, not as Ding Joe. So what is the dynamic happen when I hear that story? When I hear that narrative of the follow-up, it really helps me to understand you even better and being able to target a specific recommendation that I can give the next time that could be, more effective and better for you. So the ground rules, for me, this is the part that to set up the framework in which how you will work with each other. The clearer it is, the better it is. Wouldn't you say, Yolanda?
Oh, yes. And because we, all have full-time jobs doing other things, if we don't have these ground rules, then the relationship can become haphazard or slip through the cracks, or, we're constantly playing phone tag with each other and not, setting up time. So what I've done for the past few years with my mentees is to, in fact, pick a day that we can meet and get those on the calendar. And then if things change, we can change them. But I know that's the dedicated time. And I do meet more than once a quarter with them. So I'm one of those. But what happens is that it kind of becomes a rhythm, and you get locked into what's going on in their lives, so that the follow-up, you build on the follow-up, so that there's a kind of a professional development record that comes out of that relationship. Because I'm always asking, what is your goal? What is it you're aiming for? And so we're kind of working toward that, which is longer term than me. But then life happens. So I get a phone call. This opportunity came up, right? What do you think about this? And so we sit down and talk about that, but in relationship to the overall sort of plan that we're working out. So I really get to know the people. And one of my mentees moved out of state, so we couldn't meet face to face. And I actually owe her a phone call or Skype. So she's asking me some questions, and I really need to think about before I call her back what I'm going to say to her. So
I think that's really good, Yolanda. And one of the things that I think is helpful that, when we start the mentor relationship, we do set sort of a framework, like, let's make sure we meet here and then connect with me again in a couple of months. But if there's a problem, connect with me sooner so we can try to iron it out. And I would say that after that first year of mentoring and trying to be thoughtful and helpful, I think that sometimes if the relationship becomes really supportive, you don't lose your mentor or your mentee, right? They stay with you a very long time. And so now I have someone who was a mentee in my first year with Lyft who will call me and say, Dr. Pam, do you have 5 minutes at 8:35 on Wednesday morning? Because it'll be before I go in a meeting. And I try to make time at 8:35 if I can.
Yes.
Because I know that they're working significantly and they've made a new move. And so I try to be attentive to that. And but that first year I was really responsible to the times we set. And then later it becomes, if need be, it becomes on the moment mentoring. Do you have 5 minutes? And I think those always go longer than 5 minutes, but it is a quick question, and it just is somebody who needs a little, another insight on the question.
And that's good to ask your mentor, when I have a quick question, how can I reach you? What's the best way to use you as a quick lifeline kind of thing? And so everybody have their preferences. Some may say just call. If I can't answer your call, you leave a message and I'll get back to you. Some say texting
Right.
or email, whatever. So it's always good to ask that question of your mentor because they're the busy one, right? Okay, so how do we cultivate a relationship? And I like to say that, please, the mentees, think of that as your responsibility to cultivate a good relationship. I'm saying that only because from my own experience, I can't count on a mentor to, it's really up to me that I want to continue this relationship. Sometimes the mentors want to mentor you and you didn't even know about it. But I think in this case, in the context of Lyft, we're asking our mentees to really cultivate the relationship. I guess we're putting the responsibility on you, mentees, to cultivate, develop, deepen that relationship. And we have some suggestions, if you will, to develop a quality relationship. And one is that who's responsible for what?
Yeah.
From the Lyft perspective, I say, you're responsible for everything. That is, don't count on your mentor to follow up with the next meeting time. You will. Don't count on the mentor to set up what it is that you're going to talk about. You will. And so I'm putting the responsibility on you, lifters, to really set the agenda, to do the follow-up, because this is just good, responsible behavior as a good mentee. That's from my own experiences. And then we are going to talk about the different ways in which you could develop this quality relationship next. So I'm going to put the slide up, and Pam and Yolanda, please chime in. These are just a sample sprinkle of things that we think would develop a quality relationship for you from a mentee perspective with your mentor. And that is that consistent and regular connecting with your mentor.
Mhm.
And you have to be accountable to maintain that consistency and regularity. But also know, when the president cancels you twice, it really doesn't mean he or she, they're not interested in you. It's just at that level, you never know what comes at them each and every day. So be a little bit forgiving. I can tell you that from our mentors, it isn't that they don't care about you anymore. It really is the things that come to their office on their desk. Sometimes it's an urgent matter. They are needed. They have to make a judgment call that, can this appointment be rescheduled? Yes. So that's really why sometimes that consistency and the regularity is hard to maintain.
Mhm.
The higher up the level of positions that your mentors have, the more difficult it is to maintain a regularity. But if they say, oh, we have to reschedule this meeting, something came up, please reschedule, and reschedule. So I'm putting the responsibility on you to maintain that. I'll stop at that bullet point to see if Yolanda and Pam have anything to add about this consistency in scheduling with the mentors.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
I
think,
would go ahead, Yolanda.
yeah, I was just going to say, I just reiterate what I had said before about a schedule, because I think it it regularizes the process. And even if you do have something that comes up, you have the ability to reschedule. So it's in your system, and you can also follow up with emails, you know, what you wanted to talk about. If you say, this is what I wanted to talk about, so therefore, you know, the next time we meet, I don't want to lose this, but there may be something else I want to talk about. So emails are good too. That's the other
Yep.
thing I was going to say. It
And
doesn't just have to be phone calls.
And I would also get to know the administrative assistant,
yes,
because the administrative assistant is so helpful. So
That's a
when
good
when you
point.
say when you say, oh, the president has to cancel again, you can talk through that with the administrative assistant to see if you can get in a better place to have a call, or sometimes individuals will take the call on the phone driving in to work so they don't put somebody in a bad place. So work with the administrative assistant as well, because I have found in my career, if there are some administrative assistants who don't want the president to do more work, and so they'll say, no, there's no time for you.
Yes.
But most of the time, they're saying, oh, let me figure out how to help you. So if you go see if you go see your mentor first, get to know that administrative assistant, call that person and say, let's just try to figure out a better time.
Mhm.
And sometimes that will really help you to get to know the administrative assistant.
Right.
Good
And
point.
if you feel like you're getting a cold shoulder from the administrative assistant, just know that that's their job. Their job is to protect their president and chancellor's calendar, their time. So some of the administrative assistant take that very seriously, right? That
Yes,
they
they
are
do.
there to make sure that you get the rest. I mean, I had an administrative assistant. She is the most loving person. So she's guarding the calendar to make sure you don't overbook, because trust me, the president and the chancellors, if they are in charge of their calendar, they always like to overbook. So
Yes.
they're that way. And that's why being in a LIFT program, if you start that relationship with them, you say, yeah, this is part of the LIFT, and that the president has made a commitment to be a LIFT mentor. So once the administrative assistant knows who you are and what this is about, then they know, yeah, you're legitimate. You're a legitimate person that is going to have some regular time with the president and chancellor when they're
Right.
scheduling.
Yeah.
And be sure to thank them too. It's always a good habit to be the best friend and side with the administrative assistant. Yeah, I think you already know that.
I'm sure they
But
already
they
know
should
that.
know that already. Yes. Don't piss off the assistant. Then the next time she's not going to be able to, or you will find that. So that's a good one. So the scheduling is important, that you maintain that regularity. I have mentees that say, what happened? There's no follow-up. It's not, doesn't appear on my calendar anymore for some reason. So the mentors are going to be on the passive side. You are going to be on the proactive side, okay, on the scheduling. Clarity of goals and objective is the next one. I'll talk a little bit about that for the session. So you decide what area you are looking at that you like to see talking about. Sometimes it's an immediate challenge that just happened this week, and it's okay. You really need to think about it. Well, how am I going to use this next hour the best to your advantage and make that time efficient for your mentor? So clarity of what it is you're trying to achieve for that session will really be helpful to have an effective session with your mentor. So I think, Yolanda, you talked about it, even, sending that email early on, like in the next session, we'd like to do this. It could be 3 things. Follow up from the last one, then there's some new questions you may have. If you have the question, you need to have that. So my next bullet is you prepare. You be prepared for the mentoring session. The mentor could respond to whatever questions you have, but if you have some questions ahead of time, the mentor could kind of say, okay, this is a particular area. Well, I might even have some referral ready to tell you, right? And have the contacts ready to give you for that session. So again, the responsibility is in your hands to be prepared. Be prepared for the session. I'd like to ask Yolanda and Pam to chime in for some additional tips on that, along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that happened early on, there was the person called and it was like to have a chat, right? And I said, well, okay, what are we going to talk about? Oh, I just kind of want to know how you're doing.
Yeah, no.
And I said, that's what we would do if we were going out for coffee or for a
Right.
drink. I said, but the purpose of this meeting is to be a bit more structured because I can use my time better if I know what it is you want from me. And we can be friends on another call or at a different environment. So I think sometimes mentees don't really know what to expect. And I think by us being very clear what their roles are and their responsibilities are up front, just gives them, again, more structure. You can always work outside the structure, which we do a lot, but I don't need I don't just need to chat.
Right, exactly. So
and
that
and
is
and I think it kind of could get you off on the wrong foot with some other person if they didn't think you were taking that time seriously.
right. So for
And I would
example, let
agree.
me,
I
yeah,
would agree on that because if we can have 3 or 4 things we work on, it helps the mentor because they typically don't have as much time. After 1 or 2 times, there might be some different kind of give and take. But that first time or second time, really structure the conversation, the 3 or 4 points that are going to be important to you.
Right.
yeah, that is not any different from you going to see your boss, right? You better be prepared. Don't expect the boss to be prepared to meet with you. Is that you're the one who got to be prepared for the boss in terms of what is it that you need to get from the boss in that meeting? What is it that you brief them? This is the background, and here it is. So, for example, you just got appointed to be a committee chair. Oh, this is the first time you are a very important steering committee chair. And I like to talk to you about, I'm appointed to this, the pathway steering committee chair position. I like to talk to you about getting some guidance on how to be a good leader for this very important initiative on our campus. What are things I need to watch out for, right? And how can I be effective? Or you're about to lead a change process. What can I do? I just got up, my president wanted me to do this. How do I go about doing whatever it is? What are some of the pitfalls? Or you ran into some political crossfire. How do I, so have that clear, right, have that clear, and then provide the background information, right, in a very succinct, clear, neutral narrative, so that you're not telling a long story that took half an hour and then you only got half an hour left to talk. So this is not any different from going to talk to your boss. They're busy. It's like, give me the rundown and what can I do to help you? So that preparedness is very important in terms of what is the most urgent need right now you want to utilize this session for. Anything else about preparedness before I talk about the follow-up on the recommendation? So you might get the advice. Some mentors will not give you point-by-point coaching, like you do this, this, this. Sometimes they ask you to think about it. Sometimes they give you different scenarios, and you have to do some critical analysis on how you want to approach it. So different mentors have different ways and different approaches in giving you solutions to a problem that you present. So you may or may not have a specific recommendation to do or a particular advice, but for me, okay, and then I'm going to ask Yolanda and Pam to talk about how your preference is. You follow the advice or you didn't follow the advice, and if you didn't, what are some of the reasons that after you thought about it, you went a different way, right? This is what I talked about earlier, coming back to tell me that, oh, your advice really worked well. This is what I did. And my gosh, everything resolved. And I am a winner in this. I became a champion because of your advice, my follow through. Those are very good follow up to come back to the mentor. I always like to hear. Well, the best thing I like to hear is, you follow my advice and you became a hero. Great, you're successful. But sometimes that doesn't necessarily work either. So I understand that. Do you have any recommendations, Yolanda?
Well,
Pam,
what
about
I try
follow-up?
to do, at least at first, is to do deep listening, because I need to understand the context and everything. So I try to give more than one response, right? You know, if you do it this way, this might be the outcome. If you do it this way, this might be the outcome. Or you might want to think about it some more and say, do I want to respond at all? This not maybe the hill you want to die on. So I
Right.
kind of, try to give different scenarios so people can think about what they want their outcomes to be. And then it puts, like you say, some critical analysis on them, because that's how decision making happens. And you want them to start thinking about this in terms of their own careers, right? The way they make decisions for other people. So when we come back, we go through all, we have that kind of conversation about what you did and why you didn't do the other things.
I think that is really important, and I hope I try to see that the same way. Like, here are a couple of options.
Right.
This may be something you want to think about, because as I try to say often, this is not my career. This is your career, and I can only give you perspective from what I've seen. But you may see some things a little differently, or you may not be as comfortable at that point in the way that we've done it. So I try to do some options as well. And afterwards, when we do talk about it again, I'll ask, what decision did you decide that would be best for you?
Mm-hmm.
How did you play this out? A little bit. So it's not, I don't ever want to take ownership in the decisions. I just want to try to provide context and maybe my experiential realities. But it would be better that I did it right, so that someone wouldn't say, well, tell me what you want me to do, right? Because that's not really what it is. Here's the experiences I've had, and then maybe here's some things we can ponder on behalf of the work you're doing. So I'm with you, Yolanda. That made total sense. That give them options, give them experiences, talk about the realities, but then somebody has to make their own decision in this.
Right.
Right. And if your action produced very positive results, be sure to thank your mentor. It's always good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's a really proper etiquette and a
That goes
good
without
habit to
saying.
have. It's thanking your mentors for their help, even if it's not something that's concrete, that maybe you got a little clarity of thinking after you're reflecting on it. A week later, just remember to send it also a little note, or to shoot them an email if you don't want to send them a personal note. But it's always good. That's a good mentee behavior, is to go back and thank. And the other thing I want to mention is confidentiality. I think that's important in a mentor-mentee relationship, that you don't go out and blabber whatever your mentor just told you. Maybe they self-disclosed, right, an experience they have similar to yours, to use as an example to give you the advice that you really need to keep confidentiality. That's the respectful and the right thing to do. That whatever it happens in your mentor-mentee relationship, it should be just assumed it's confidential.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, provide feedback. If whatever it's not working or whatever, it's good to have that clear communication. And again, this is not any different from feedback to your supervisors or to your team members. So these are all good skills and habits to have, not only for mentors, but in your everyday relationship. That feedback, mentors really need your feedback as well. What is working and what isn't working, what might work better for you. So for the mentor to get to know your style, your preference, what's workable for you, okay? Here we have another point for you, is that the best way to be a good mentee is become mentor. So
Mentor.
you really need to ask, are you mentoring someone else? If you're not, seek out somebody to mentor. Really, that is the best way to become a good mentee, when you start mentoring someone else and you're sitting on the other side of the table.
Absolutely.
Oh yes, oh yes, because you know you learn by doing too, right? Makes you.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And in fact, it is your responsibility, right? We're talking about a mentee. You're responsible for that relationship with the mentor and cultivating. Well, you're also responsible in bringing others alongside with you. So it's good. So if you don't have a mentee now, I really challenge you to look for somebody who you can mentor. There's always people that have not walked the path that
Right.
you have, that really need your experiences as their guiding light as well.
And it's part of the philosophy of this program to empower other people. It's like playing it forward, right? I mean, that's what this is about. We each one teach one. We're about creating a whole new generation of leadership.
Yep. And the plan for closure, and that is with Lift mentors. They made, because I know that Pam could tell you, some mentors says, I'll give you this year, but the year after, I won't be able to, because I have this and this commitment. And so they would tell you that we have 1 year, and they're happy to help a lifter to experience that for this year and take advantage of their expertise and experience for that 1 year. So at the end of the relationship, there's also a good time you want to talk to them, whether is this continuing, you had no commitment to continue, but maybe the mentor wants to continue. That's on their own.
Right.
But you need to bring some closure. If the mentor relationship comes to a close with Lift mentors, then you want to say, in the future, right? It's a different kind of relationship, but that is someone that you know. It doesn't, my advice is keep the relationship, right? Not as a regular a mentor-mentee, if that is that they're not able to continue, but my gosh, you keep that relationship going. It could not regularly, but check in once in a while, just, right?
It's part of your network now.
That become part of their network.
Yeah, we're part of their network.
Right. It's like that person who said, Dr. Pam, do you have 5 at 8:35 in the morning? And I haven't talked to that person in months. But I know that 5, that's all that person needed, was to ask that quick question. I think that's an important development of the network that you're going to keep forever. And I do believe so significantly that if you are mentored, you must mentor. If you are, you must mentor, because that helps the next generation as well.
I agree.
Okay, as we come to a close, I want to ask if there's any questions, burning questions, just from those of you who are online with us. And then we'll close it with Pam and Yolanda. Give us your final sage
please.
advice. Any questions from those who are online with us today? Nope, we've covered quite a lot. I know. I hope those are all helpful to you. Great. Yes,
hopefully,
that's
hopefully,
good. I see
yeah.
the nonverbal saying that yes. So I hope that they are all very helpful to you and that you got some tips to move forward to even develop further and having a better and more quality mentee-mentor relationship for you. And then as we close, I'm going to ask Pam and Yolanda your final advice for today.
So here's my advice on the mentor work that we do for Lyft. If for something, and a few people have reminded me that that maybe that first interaction with the person that we established as your mentor just may not have come off as well as you have wanted it to. I would say to people, don't be afraid to call me or talk about this, or call either Yolanda or Ding Jo, call any of us and say, maybe we could think of someone else for me. This didn't quite feel right. And that's okay, because we want this experience to be the best it can be for you.
Right.
So don't, and we've had a couple of people do that.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, I
Dr.
did.
Kim, can you help me with somebody else? I'm on it. Tell me what you were thinking, and let's get somebody there who you can have a little different experience with. And like I said, there was a mentor who is as good as she can be. And I said, you are becoming a very bad mentor. And she goes, why? I said, because you won't answer your mentees' calls. Oh my God, I've been so busy. So we know things happen, and that's what Dr. Curry said a little while ago. Things happen, and we can help that.
Yeah.
And so don't ever believe that this is the situation you get in. You're not getting anything else, right? We'll help you with something. So that's
That's
the
right.
one thing that I want to leave you with.
That is.
And my thought is that just like we're in the business of education and lifelong learning, mentorship is lifelong, career long learning. That's another aspect of your learning. And I have mentors, and two of them we have been talking for the last hour. So we mentor each other as well.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. That is such a good advice and reminder, right? We
Yeah.
are all, we mentor each other all the
Mhm.
time. We learn from each other all the time.
Right.
And I hope that we can, with that, I'm going to close with, that's really why we hope you will all join us at Lift 2, that we will spend the day together and learn from each other on a continuous basis.
Very
And at the
good.
same time with the mentee is that bringing someone else along, I consider that your responsibility to recommend someone for a Lift 2020. We already have quite a few registrations.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we have today's college president calls it, please reserve 5 spaces for me. So that's good. We really hope that you encourage others, and if you do, please ask them to register early so they won't end up on the waiting list. Okay?
All right.
All right, well, goodness.
Okay, everyone.
Thank you so much, and we're glad you joined us today. And for those of you who were not able to join us, I know that this is available to you, and that if you're watching us now, we wish you well as well. Best wishes, everybody, and we hope
Thank
to see
you,
you
Myra,
soon.
too.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thanks, Myra. And we'll be in
Bye.
touch.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll be in touch.
Bye.
That's for sure.
Bye.
Bye.